Product definition, product research, product analysis, product design, and product testing. I know this sounds like a bunch of gibberish right now, but welcome back to a brand new series on the channel. Well, in this series, you and I are going to embark upon this journey called as the product design lifecycle. This is a 5-part series where in each video, we're going to talk about each of the phases we have just mentioned. Starting off with today, we're going to talk about the product definition, which is the first phase of the lifecycle. Let's get started. Essentially, the product design cycle consists of UX and UI. Now, I mentioned UX first because I believe the better your UX is, the better your UI becomes. Hence, the first three phases that I told you about, that is the product definition, the product research, and the product analysis phase, becomes that much vital. Not just that, all of these 5 phases that I told you about are connected to each other. So we have to be very careful while doing all of these phases and give these phases equal importance because we don't want to take error moving on forward so that it converts from definition. The same error goes towards research and the same error goes towards analysis. It's just not good for the product. So we have to give all of these phases that I told you about equal importance. So these are the two things to really note down about. And any which ways, let's see what actually is product definition. Right, so your product definition consists of a bunch of steps, and it is by far the most important phase, you can say, of this particular life cycle. So, what are the steps that it consists of? Well, first off, you must give your product a general description or a tentative description because moving on forward, you might change the name, the tagline, and maybe your just a general description of what your product will do. So, give your product a tentative name, similarly a tentative tagline and a description of what your product will be, just to begin with, because moving on forward these kind of things will change as we do our research even more. We might think to change the name or the tagline or the logo or so on. And another most important step that you would have to see over here would be that you give your product a domain environment, as in what environment does your product belong. For example, if you're making a project that is for a chatting or something, that would belong to communication environment. Similarly, if you're making a project that is for cryptocurrency, that would become in like a blockchain or a crypto environment or a domain, basically. So give your product that kind of domain. Right, so once you've given your product a tentative description, we move on to the next step, that is finding out what the user requirements are based on the environment. Now, here's where that domain that you chose comes into the picture. So you have to do a really good analysis or research on that particular domain or the environment and find out what are the most important or what are the most simplest form of requirements that the user wants out of it. Now, I know this sounds like a bunch of gibberish or I'm moving on pretty forward, but I'm also going to move on to, or I'm also going to show you my screen where I have done kind of an example project so that it kind of helps you as well. But now, theory is also important than going on with practicals over there. So yeah, once you have done with the research or basically finding out what the general requirements are for the environment, we move on to the next 3 steps, that would be user personas, user stories, and use case diagrams. Talking about the personas and stories, this is going to give you a really good example of what your users will be like, right? And then you can move on forward and make your interface or do your research based on these kind of users and what the users' requirements are. So user personas basically consists of a user's demographic. Demographic basically means the photo, the name, the age, what they are doing, and all these things. And similarly, a few more things moving on forward. So what are their goals with the particular product? And what are their pain points with the particular product? So like say, for example, if you're making a communication platform, so with the communication platforms that they have used before, like for example, WhatsApp or Telegram or Facebook Messenger or Instagram Messenger. So what are the pain points from these kind of environments that they've used before that they don't want to see moving on forward if they want to use your product, right? So pain points, goals, what their personality is like, these kind of things are going to help you understand your users better. And make sure when you make personas, you also tend to focus on a larger or a more universal group of people, not just into a particular group of people. And by group of people, I mean, let's say if you're just sharing it with your friends or just asking questions with your friends, that would be a small group of people, whether it be like if you're a working professional, then you'll only be focusing on working professionals. If you're a student or an intern, you'll be focusing only on students and interns. So doing this is not a good idea. So make sure that when you do your user research or user persona, basically, it should be on a wider scale. So you focus on students, working professionals, regular communication domain users, or investors, or again, that depends upon what your product environment is like, or what your product domain is. And similarly, when we move on to user stories, these are just a paragraph of what your user is like. And I'm also going to show you a syntax of how to write a user story, but it kind of gives you a similar thing and solves, and it also basically provides you with a tentative solutions of those kind of problems that the user have faced. Right? So like what we saw in user persona is that we just focus on what their pain points are, but in user stories we also try to solve them primarily, not exactly, but primarily we try to solve them. And you will know what I'm talking about when I actually show you what the product is on my system. And one of the final steps would be use case diagrams. Now, use case diagrams basically give you an idea of how a particular group of user will be using your product. So whether it be communication protocol, how will students be using it? At the same time, how will the regular communication user will use it? Let's say a working professional that is working from home will be regularly chatting on platforms like Skype, WhatsApp, or so on. So not just like again, as I said, use case diagrams will give you a complete example or a complete flow of how a particular user will be using your platform, and of course different categories as well. So this is entirely what user or basically product definition phase is. Now we'll be moving on with the practicals of whatever we just discussed about, so that you understand it even better.
Okay, so now we'll be diving a little more deeper into product definition phase and understanding it in even more clarity. So this is a Google Doc that I have created for my UX case study, and I would also suggest you to do the same because Google Doc is highly syncable through your phone and even through your PC. So if you have started working on PC, you can continue the same work on your phone as well, and you can view it anytime you want, edit and comment it anytime you want. So yeah, Google Doc would be a better idea over here and gives you a lot of editing options as well. So yeah, that would be my suggestion. But let's move forward with what product definition is. As you can see over here, my product is called as Acorn, and the product tagline is automating tomorrow. Just a logo and a kind of a description about what the product will do. So this gives you a kind of a tentative description about the product, and of course this won't be the final names of the product that we'll be making. We might change it moving on forward and might not. It all depends upon how the ideas come up in my head. But yeah, the product name, the product tagline and product logo, as well as the general description, a tentative description, this is how you give it. But before moving on forward, since I'll be using this particular example throughout the phases, it's better if you know what this product actually is. So if you can pause and read this particular section, you will get a general idea, but I'm going to give you a quick run through. So Acorn is basically a crypto trading and portfolio management application, and it is for all the devices out there, whether it be Windows or Mac or Linux and environment. It will be available for all the environment, for the large screen as well as for the small screen devices. And one of the most important section of this, or one of the most important features why I'm making this particular product, is its automation as well as scheduling technologies. There are not a lot of products out there in the market right now that focuses on automation and scheduling, so I, through my product, will want to provide that. Being said that, that would be the tentative description that we had talking about. And now moving on forward, we'll also talk about what the user requirements are based on environment. And here's where the domain that you had defined comes into picture. So what you're going to do is basically go on Google and search what users' major or primary requirements are with that particular domain. And over here, I'll just give you an example. Since this is a crypto environment, I have mentioned that people need a smart way to manage their portfolios and keep an eye on markets ups and downs. Of course, if you're a working professional or if you're a student, you don't have to, you basically don't have time to sit in front of a computer screen all the time and learn about the charts and how the market is doing. So we need to provide a smart way to manage the portfolio as well as look at markets ups and downs. And then moving on forward, we need to also give awareness programs to people, particularly in India, because there are not a lot of people who are trying to take risks, and there are not a lot of people who believe that crypto could, one day become the primary currency. Of course, that is not true, but moving on forward, we just need to make people aware that crypto is the tomorrow, particularly in the Indian market. So yeah, that would be the second user requirement in the market domain. And third and final one, providing users with a smart and easy way of depositing local currencies, and that becomes to ensure basically a good user experience, which basically means that there are a lot of particularly in India, if you see, there are a lot of products which require third-party applications in order to withdraw and deposit local currency. So we also need to provide users with a smarter or easier way to do that. So these would be some general or basically generic or starting off with some great requirements that are for users based on the particular market environment, that is crypto. Now moving on forward, similarly, it depends upon what your domain is. So do your research similar to what your domain would look like. Then moving on forward, we have user personas. As mentioned over here, it is made on Canva. So this is just an example of what a user persona would look like. As I said, demographics, that would be a picture, the name of the user, the age, the occupation, and where they are currently dwelling in. And moving on forward, you can also put in a lot of other things like if they have invested, what are their particular choices in the product. Like for example, over here, what would Sajal actually like to use in the crypto market or something like that. So you can also put in a lot of demographic details, but I'm currently sticking with just the age, location, name, and current occupation or the designation. And this is the general description of what the user is, what the user currently interests in, and what are his goals with the particular crypto market. So for example, over here he has said that I have invested in a few cryptos and have high hopes of growing, high hopes of them to grow. So that would be one of the goals or life goals, you can say, such as life goals related to crypto environment. And then there are frustrations, which are basically pain points, and as much frustrations you can find would be better, because that will make your product that much better. And similarly, I have made two more, that would be Tushar as well as Saurabh. And again, a lot of things are similar over here. If you want, you can pause and actually check what are the actual things that you can put, and how you can actually make these things. It's quite simple. You can just go to this website called as canva.com. I'll make sure to leave the link in the description. And if you don't have an account, you can make it. It comes with the free version as well as the pro version. I would suggest you to go with the pro version, but if you are like a one-time user, the free version would also do. So after going on there, you can find the search button over here, from where you can just search for persona or anything. So if you just search for persona, it's going to give you a bunch of templates that you can just pick and start editing. Like for example, if you choose this particular one, we'll let it load. Over here you're going to get a lot of examples on different types of persona diagrams, like for example this one, description, goals, challenges, and so on. And you can choose the one that you would prefer, that seems pleasing to the eyes, and just change the colors and the text, and that's how you can make your persona. So yeah, let's come back and go to the next section, that is user stories. Now user stories, right now user stories have a couple of prerequisites, that are preliminary research as well as user persona. So once you have done with your preliminary research as well as your user persona, you can move on forward with the user stories. So story over here, this is the particular syntax for what a user story would look like. So it would be as a blank over here, not banker, as a blank, that would be your user's designation. I want blank again, that basically what the user actually wants from the particular product, and so that I can, and another blank, that will be how will that particular option solve the user's story. So for example, over here, as a banker, I want market price updates so I can get immediate updates on these market prices. So this is basically a story of the particular user, and in the prerequisite section what you have to do is basically what to do in order to solve the particular story. So in order to give them particular immediate updates, so we will be providing users with price updates without any delays, right? So that would be how we will be solving the particular story. And in the how section, what exactly we will be doing in order to solve the prerequisite section. So in order to give early updates without any delays, we connected to a reliable market price API so that there are no delays in the app, or basically showing what the real-time prices are. So similarly, you have to do stories for different users that you have over here. So as a student, similarly as an investor, and again as a student. So this is how you make user stories. Now there would be one question, as in how exactly to get details for user personas as well as user stories. So what you can do is basically create a simple Google form. Let me quickly show you what kind of form I had created for this particular user persona. So if I can move forward over here, you can see Acorn user personas that I had created, and these were the questions inside of it. So I wanted them to put in a valid email address so I can contact them as well in order to ask them, can I actually use their information that they have provided me with. And then comes the demographic details, that would be full name, age, gender, current location, designation, a short bio, and a formal picture. And all of these things can be changed based on what your user persona's requirements are. And then we move on to the next section where it says psychographic details, that are what do you like to do in your me time. This is basically understanding the user even better. And when you hear trading, what is the exact thing that comes to your mind? Again, these questions will be depending upon what your domain research is. And other than your current field of employment and study, what other field interests you the most. And then we come to the technographic details. This is the more important part of the form. So make sure that they answer this particular section with as much details as possible. So first one would be, what are your current goals with respect to cryptocurrency investments? What is the one thing you would like to change in cryptocurrency market? And what are your major pain points related to cryptocurrency market? Again, this major pain point section becomes that much more important because that is what you would actually like to find. And then on a scale of 1 to 5, this was just again a question that would be related to your particular domain, and this is how you get details for your user stories as well as your user persona. So Google Form is again a free platform that you can use, and if you want to afford, or if you can afford it, you can also go for Typeform or SurveyMonkey or any other thing, but Google Form would be a better option. And then we come to the final section, that is okay, this is for the next video, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, coming to the final section, you have a use case diagram. Now I'll also show you how exactly to make this use case diagram, but let's now okay, sorry for that. But let's now focus on what exactly a use case diagram is. So these are the two users. Okay, so these symbols that you see that looks like a stickman are called as actors. These things that you see inside of oval are called as actions, and these are the connections, or basically the users and the extensions. So actors are basically your users. So since this is a investing and a crypto environment, we'll have students and working professionals that are the new users, and full-time investors that have been using or investing for a long time and understand the blockchain and the crypto market even better. And these are the actions that they will be particularly doing. So for example, if you see over here, scheduling and automation are not required for full-time investor because they understand, learn the charts, and do it on their own. But student and working professionals who don't have much time will require this scheduling and automation. Similarly, cross-platform as well. And market analysis, market research, and so on, and even the market updates won't be required for students and working professionals because they don't have that much time analyzing and reading white papers, reading charts all the time and all these things. But it would be required for full-time investors because let's say if there is a new coin or a new denomination in the market, they would require a lot of things. to research and analyze and then start on with the investment. So yeah, that would be important for full-time investors and not so much for the students. So this is how you make use case diagrams. And now exactly how to make use case diagram. If you're a UI UX designer, I'm pretty sure you will be using Figma. And so for that, I don't think I'm supposed to show that, but yeah, there is this beautiful community file called as UML use case diagram. You can duplicate that and start using. But what this page exactly has are, if you can see over here, it has different components. So different components for actors, similarly your associations as in the connections, and then if you move over here, they have different use cases that are basically the actions that I told you about, and then what your product or system boundary would look like. So these are the 4 important things that goes inside of our use case diagram: the actors, the actions, the connections, and the boundary diagram for your entire product. So yeah, that is how you make a use case diagram, and that is the general description or general thing of what needs to be done in a product definition section of a product design life cycle. So yeah, I hope that helped.
Alright, so that ends our first phase of the design cycle, that is the product definition. Next up, we'll be moving forward with product research, but that is the discussion for the next video. I hope this particular video helped you get started with product design phase. If it did, please leave a like and comment down your suggestions, and I'll see you in the next one.